Talked specifically about the growing presence of the drug cartel organizations, specifically La Familia, Los Zetas, and the Gulf Cartel. We know that while there's an argument about spillover violence, we do know there's a spillover presence of drug cartel organizations here in the United States. It spans to 270 cities. When you look at Austin and the I-35 corridor, they go directly up I-35 through San Antonio to Austin, which is becoming more and more of a hub for drug distribution throughout the United States. With that in mind, we discussed the idea of federal funding. And it's unfortunate that the administration has now chosen to cut or remove Austin from the Security Initiative Grant Program. I believe this is a big mistake. I will be having conversations with the Secretary of Homeland Security about this. We will be dealing with the appropriations process in Congress as well to ensure that Austin remains on the list that receives the Security Initiative grant funding. We made the list the last 4 years, and unfortunately we're taken off the list just this last year. I don't think it makes any sense for cities like Cincinnati and Cleveland, Ohio to get this kind of funding, and yet a city like Austin that has the state capitol, the state university, and the presence of these dangerous drug cartels here in Austin to be taken off the list. And in addition, San Antonio was taken off the list as well. I'll be working with my colleagues in the Congress to restore Austin being placed on the list in the funding. Congressman Cuellar and I are working currently with the Senate appropriators to remedy this situation, and I feel very optimistic we can do so. We have to keep our eyes on the ball. We're hitting the 10th anniversary of 9/11. Fortunately, we haven't had an attack of that magnitude since then. We did have an attack at Fort Hood, which is the largest killing since 9/11, with Major Hassan and his contacts in Pakistan. I believe that alone highlights again the potential threat in Central Texas. We know there are other threats. We know that the Christmas bomber, for instance, was actually thinking about heading to Houston, Texas, rather than Detroit. And there are many other threats that the Lubbock, Texas Tech terrorists picked up, the one outside of Houston in Hempstead, and there have been threats the Joint Terrorism Task Force can tell you about here in Austin that I can't go into. But having said that, we want to make sure that Austin remains one of the safest cities in the United States, and that Austin receives that federal funding that it deserves. And so with that, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to our police chief, who is doing a great job for the city of Austin, protecting its citizens. Chief.
Thank you, Congressman, and I want to thank Chief Hooker also from Pflugerville for being here. You know, this UASI funding is critical to the city of Austin, but not just to the city of Austin, but for all the people in Central Texas and all of our partners. Thanks to your leadership, when I got here in 2007, we approached you, we approached the governor, and we talked to you all about the fact that we did not have UASI funding, as well as we didn't have public safety cameras and a lot of things that we need to leverage to keep the city one of the safest in the country. As a result of Congressman McCaul's leadership on the Hill, we received that funding, but now, after spending 2.5 years of a very methodical process to put together a fusion center that really is a value-added center, not just for Austin, not just for Central Texas, but for all of Texas and ultimately for the rest of this nation. We are a cog, and we're an important cog in the intelligence cycle for this country, and we are really concerned that without this funding, that we won't be able to maintain the type of center that the people of this city, the people of this state, the people of this region expect of us. And I'm, for one, very thankful, Congressman, that we have you on the Hill and your colleagues from this region that I know will fight for us, because this is about disruption, this is about prevention, not just of terrorism, but most importantly, is disrupting and preventing the drug cartels that are in our midst. We know that we've had violence directly related. We know that we've had at least one homicide in the last year that is directly related to the drug cartel. That was actually a hit from involving narcotics. And the bottom line is we need to not retreat. We need to move forward. Our expectations are based on the JTTF intelligence that we have here, which is the Joint Terrorism Task Force, and some of the classified briefings. You know, I don't want to scare people, but I want people to know that this is not a sleepy college town. There's a huge metropolitan area with a lot of challenges, and we are very thankful, we should all be very thankful that we have Congressman McCaul and his leadership to help us restore this funding.